What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the channel. It's Hansel if you're new here, and today I'm taking you guys behind the scenes of my podcast setup. So if you're new to podcast or want to see how it all comes together, I'm going to walk you through all the gear, the layout, also how I make everything to come together for high quality audio and video for my podcast. So let's dive in. All right, first up, I want to talk about the design of the podcast space. So I pretty much went on my iPad and just drew everything out, as you can see here on the screen. And I love to see when a great plan comes to life, because literally the table, the mics, everything where it's placed, I literally drew it out. So with that said, the first thing on the list, the table. So the table is a conference table I found on Amazon. And I wanted something kind of different. I didn't want just a black table, obviously, or not just a wood table. So I got both. And this table is very different to me. I never seen anything like it. So I was like, you know what, let me add some different type of, flair to the podcast space. So it's a 6-foot conference table, and it fits perfectly for what I was trying to do for this podcast space. I wanted to make the space big enough for 4 people, or me and my co-host have some guests. We got some space for it. Cause at first I was gonna do a two-seat setup with the podcast, but I was like, nah, we most likely gonna have guests. So this table fits perfect for it. So the chairs I got for this space are pretty much modern dining room table chairs, but I wanted to find chairs that were comfortable and also fit with the rest of my studio space, because I wanted every room to connect in some way, and these chairs definitely do the trick, because they definitely connect with these chairs here and the makeup area of the studio. So they were perfect. So yeah, it's really not much to say on the chairs. They look good. They do what they supposed to do. Cool, them the chairs. All right, so we're a couple minutes into the video, and I want to point out something. So if you haven't noticed already, I'm already using the Holy Land portable mic, and I have this perfect shear mic in front of me, and I'm not recording on it. So perfect segue into the audio recorder and the mics. So firstly, the audio recorder I'm using is the Zoom H6 audio recorder. So this audio recorder can host 4 mics with the XLR cables. And then with the mics, I have these Shure mics where they're pretty much a hybrid mic, where they can have the XLR cable and a cable that goes straight into your laptop. So I own a content creation studio, and most people just have those XLR cable mics. I think they're the higher end Shure mic, but I wanted to be diverse since I'm running a business here. So sometimes we have people come in and it's their first podcast, or they just don't know how to use an audio recorder. I help them out, but sometimes they don't want to use it. So I give them the option they can plug these mics directly into their laptop. So it's very diverse. You can do both, use the XLR cables, or just plug straight into your laptop. That's why I love these mics. And with that said, let's switch on over the audio on these mics so you can see how it sounds. All right, y'all, now we switched on over to the Shure mics and the audio recorder. So one thing before we move on, I want to point out is the price on both of these. So when I got the audio recorder, it was about $198, and some of the bigger audio recorders I seen, they were like $500 plus, and I was like, nah. So found this, and it works excellent. So if you got a budget on your podcast and you need something cheaper but it's going to do the job, definitely look at the H6. And then when it comes to the Shure mic that I have here, these are fairly cheap as well. I'm not going to say cheap, but less expensive than the higher end models. I've seen some go from between $170 to $270, versus the other ones they're looking at about $300 to $400 per mic. So definitely, if you want to get something on the cheaper end but don't want to skip out on that quality, definitely get the H6 and pair it up with this Shure mic here. Link in the description below. All right, so when you're doing a podcast, soundproof is probably number 2 right after audio for your podcast space. So what I have here, I got 2 different things. First, I have these wood panels. They not only give a layer of aesthetic to the space, but they also have sound dampening capabilities. They have this fabric here behind the wood, and that helps with the sound and keep the sound in one place. And I also added these sound panels I got from Guitar Center. So firstly, the wood panels, they're pretty cheap. Well, depending on your budget, they're pretty much between $100 to $200 per set, and you get 2 of them in a pack together. And then this sound panel I got from Guitar Center, it was very hard to find this on Amazon. I don't even think they have anything this big on Amazon, but I got them from Guitar Center. I don't remember what the price was, but they wasn't cheap. I ain't gonna lie. They weren't cheap, but they fit the aesthetic and look I was going for. So I put some LEDs behind this to help with the aesthetic when we have the lights down in the studio, so you can see them like this. It really creates a vibe in the studio when you shoot like this, because most podcasts, we want that ambient light in the background, and this pretty much provides that, but you definitely want to have some front lights in there too. All right, so a couple other things that I want to add before we wrap up on this video that are, I wouldn't say vital to a podcast space, but definitely some ads. So firstly, like a TV or a place to put your logo. So if you have your own podcast space, you're probably just gonna have your own logo just on the wall. You don't need a TV. But in my case, I have a business where multiple people want to use this space for their podcast. So what I do is I'm able to put their logos on the TV when they're recording. So that way they can make the space their own. And also I have these light bars, these tube lights, and the LEDs behind the TV to change color to fit whatever vibe they're looking for or whatever fits their brand. Make the space their own, pretty much. And last thing, I always want to get one of these. Finally got one, got a situation where I can use it. All right, last tip. So if you want to have a setup like this where it's kind of dim and you're able to use the accent lighting in the background, you definitely want to use a key light in the front to light up either the space or just yourself, like I'm doing right now. So definitely want to do it. And then that's one good thing about my studio. I want to plug that in. When you book here, you have the entire studio. So not only do you have access to the podcast space, you have access to the photography lounge, pretty much the whole space. You're in the whole space, so perfect deal. So with that said, you can go in there and get one of the big lights like the key light I'm using right now and use that for your front lighting on these type of setups. All right, y'all, that's pretty much the end of this video. Everything in my setup, it has a link in the description below. If you're starting a podcast or have a podcast already, comment below as well so people can go and support. Also linking my podcast in the description. And with that said, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, people, peace.